Most likely, we all live in either a house, apartment, condo, or duplex with our immediate family. And while I do enjoy the intimacy and privacy of living with solely my immediate family members, I also feel like I'm losing out. Surrounding my house are swaths of other houses, each filled with a family of its own. Though I am so close to neighbors and the community at large, my family and I are also quite distant from them. While proximity is not an issue, it seems that many, if not most, of the households in my neighborhood subscribe to a lifestyle illustrated by the image of the quintessential American family, a single family living and providing for themselves independently. But is the triumph of providing for a family independent from all else really the recipe for happiness? Though that's what's suggested by the American dream, the sources I consulted had a different picture to offer. The TED Talk titled The New American Dream by Courtney Martin, Frank McCourt's memoir Angela's Ashes, and an image from the Time magazine article Keeping the Dream Alive all explore the concept of communal living as opposed to the stereotypical family home surrounded by a white picket fence. These explorations point out that while traditionally the ideal place to raise a happy family in America has been in a moderately sized house and enclosed yard, communal living is in fact more conducive to happiness. As Frank McCourt recalls the woes of his childhood, living in tenement housing in Brooklyn as a son of Irish immigrants, it becomes apparent that there are plenty of reasons his family should have fallen into ruin and ended up on the street. His father was a drunk and scarcely brought home wages even if he got a job, which left his mother to raise a household of children and work as a cleaning lady. The McCourt children would most likely not have survived if not for the generosity of their neighbors. Quote, "We get soup from Mrs. Leibowitz and mashed potatoes from Minnie McAdory, and they show us how to take care of the twins, how to wash their bottoms and how to wash diaper rags after they get them all shitty." While there is something to be said for the privacy of living in one's own home, McCourt and his brothers owe a lot to their neighbors in Brooklyn. Though the author's language isn't flowery, its simplicity suggests the basic nature of the services they were provided. It was essential and therefore natural for them to receive the soup from Mrs. Leibowitz and the potatoes from Minnie. Though conversely, living in a house would imply financial stability and render them capable of feeding themselves, McCourt argues that their family was better off for the treatment and relationships they received and developed with their neighbors. In her TED Talk, Courtney Martin speaks about how what was once considered a quintessential aspect of the American dream, making more money than your parents, has fallen into the realm of an unlikely possibility at best and impossible at worst. With the decline in that trend is a simultaneous fall of the image of the stereotypical American family. No longer are people constrained by the notion that a family should consist of a mother, father, and children of a certain age. She argues that as more and more people discovered that while living behind a white picket fence was once the pinnacle of stability and happiness, in this day and age, we have the freedom to explore other living options and possibly discover that security and happiness are not exclusive to the isolated home. She argues that where stability and happiness lie is in relying on others, one of the foremost characteristics of community living. Martin stresses that community living takes the stress off of relying solely on your immediate family for emotional needs. She argues that it puts a lot of pressure on parents to be the only people their children can ask for advice. Though her ideal form of community living is not in the tenement homes in Brooklyn, as McCourt experienced, the trend remains, that relying on others makes for a stronger home front. Finally, I looked at an image of what was once considered to be the quintessential American family and lifestyle. The clean-cut lawn and upstanding family imply a degree of perfection that the journey to reaching the American dream is all about. But the clean-cut lines of the family and the scenery also connote bleakness and perhaps loneliness. The black and white coloring also emphasize a sort of emptiness that is present in the photo. If this is what the American dream amounts to, I hope for the sake of everyone that has worked hard to provide for their family that the neighborhoods and communities of America have more to offer. The American ideal of providing for oneself and one's family independently goes back far and is directly related to another dearly held ideal, hard work. In a country that considers each person to be in charge of his own destiny, it can be a bleak journey to rely on little more than oneself. While there is definitely something to be said for independence and taking life into your own hands, that way of thinking ignores the vulnerability that each of us has. Denial or ignorance of that inherent vulnerability manifests itself in the American perception of the ideal family. What authors and speakers Frank McCourt and Courtney Martin, respectively, are just to do is embrace our vulnerability as people and as families and reach out to others. Happiness does not lie in the separation or independence from others, but instead in the collaboration and joining of lives. Neither Courtney Martin nor I expect everyone to go join a communal living project and share a bathroom with 10 other people, but there is something to be said for a neighborhood where people rely on each other, as immigrants once did in the tenement housing. It is clear that the American dream has transitioned over the years, and now it is time for us to start acting on that change.